But I didn't mind it if my mum did it because she had terrible aim. So every time I would be there, it would be like going crazy, just like completely missing me. And like sometimes I'd be staring like point blank, and she'd be like, "You bastard!" and then she'd throw it.
Are you listening?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode under the new name, Binkowski Broadcast. Welcome back. My guest today needs no introduction. He's been a guest on this podcast many times. His name is Coumas. Welcome back, Adam.
Oh, hey, man, thanks for having me. Good, man.
Always,
yeah,
always
good.
a pleasure. I'm great. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you. Shoot the shit. And
yeah.
What I wanted to talk today about is there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now. 2020 is definitely going down the drain. You have protests left and right, and people just sort of talking about what they don't like and all that jazz. And it sort of got me thinking about the way people respond to different things and stuff that's going on, any hardship, and the way it sort of goes from the way they were raised, right? And I know we both 90s babies, and I wanted to ask you, do you think kids nowadays are being raised soft?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, I don't think that's necessarily their fault. I just think as society sort of progresses, life gets easier. Because I know, compared to the kids today, we definitely had it tougher. But then compared to what our parents had to go through, they probably had it a lot tougher. Until you get to the point where kids were like just dying of like tetanus after being born. It's like, boy, they had it really tough because, so it's like, yes, I think kids today they do have it easier and they are a bit softer as a result. But I think I don't know if that's specific to their generation. And I think it's just something that happens over time.
That is very interesting because like kids in the 90s, man, like we like, as harsh as it sounds, like we didn't give a shit, and kids in the 90s were fucking eating dirt, eating glass, just playing with whatever outside. And whereas nowadays there's this whole thing of like everyone's a winner, there's no competition, no hardship and everything. And I think that in a long time, in a long term, just fucks everyone up because it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument to be like, if you're raised with everyone's a winner and then everybody gets a participation trophy and there's no emphasis on winning, then maybe nobody will strive to be the best because then it's not ingrained in them. And then you just end up having a generation of losers or people who aren't it's like...
I really hate that. I
really hate a bit of hardship to go through something.
I really hate that like everyone's a winner. Even if you come last, you're a winner because you still took part. And it's just like this whole argument is so shit. And I hate when parents do that because then essentially you're just raising pussies and nothing. Like that's it. Because in real life that doesn't exist. That concept, everyone's a winner and everyone deserves everything.
No, it'll quickly erode as soon as you leave school or the comforts of your parents' home.
Absolutely.
Business doesn't care about losers. Business doesn't care about participation trophies. The whole economy is based around winners and cutthroat attitudes and
competition.
You might say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but if you want to survive, you need to have a bit of that sort of mentality.
Competition, man. That's what's needed. That in the past, I was really fat, right?
There is.
and I don't condone bullying or anything like that, but the reason why I decided to lose weight is because someone on the street told me that I'm fat. And that, as harsh as it sounds, shit like that helps.
Yeah. I think there's definitely two ways you could have gone about that.
Because if it wasn't for that, I would just end up sitting on the sofa, shoving cake up in my face, watching Netflix because like everyone's a winner. No one really needs.
VHS, as it was known back then.
Yeah, man, and cassette tapes.
So tell me, when that happened to you, what was your initial reaction? Were you like, "Am I?" Or were you like, I knew, but I thought, no, it didn't really matter. The stakes were so low until you realised someone could say that to you, and then you were like,
my initial reaction was I got really pissed off and I wanted to beat the guy up.
But then he just ran away and he had better cardio or something.
Yeah. But then my next reaction was I just like looked at myself in the mirror the next day and I was like, I am fucking fat. Let's do something about it.
Interesting. So what changed though? Because you were aware of it before, presumably, right?
Well, I was aware of the fact that I'm bigger, but I didn't feel like I need to do something about it necessarily. And you know, like, I don't know, your grandma might tell you, oh, you put on some pounds or you put on some kilos or whatever.
Even when I've lost weight, you put on weight. Even
if that criticism comes from any member of the family, you don't really take it in that much. Whereas just the simple fact that some stranger just sort of told me, you fucking fat. I was like, shit, like, I want to beat you up, but at the same time, now looking back at it,
solid life advice.
I got him to thank for all of it.
He should do his own inspirational talks, like, you hire him for like 300 quid, and he goes up to your loved one. He just goes, "You really let yourself go," and then you just walk away. Yeah, that's interesting because it's funny, isn't it? Like we do seek acceptance from others.
Yeah,
and it's like I think there's two ways to go about it because I definitely know some people, some close friends of mine who'd be like, that was horrible and he shouldn't have made you feel insecure about your body, and you know, fancy him telling you, like, you would have known you were big, you would have known you were overweight, you would have known.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people I speak to, they hate the fact or the idea of telling people, but I think a lot of people, mainly men from my experience, seem to thrive on, they need someone to tell them, by the way, mate, yeah, you've put on a lot of weight. The same way you'd want someone to notice if you'd lost a lot of weight, or you just want people to, you don't want to be surrounded by yes men all the time. If you're constantly surrounded by purely, I'd say, not say supportive, but just people who are like always saying yes and everything you do is perfect, that's not a healthy place to be. You want people to be like, no, you have gained a little weight, or yeah, I think this can be better, or something, because if they're your friend and you trust them, then it can only improve.
Absolutely. And you need, there's no other way around it. Like, you won't, if you don't feel it yourself, you will never feel like you need to lose weight or whatever. But if I have like a close friend of mine, I want them to tell me, you're a fat bitch, lose weight.
Yeah.
And because that's needed, there's no other way, there's no sorry. There's no sort of nice way of saying it, and you just need that external.
It comes across as patronizing as well if you fluff it up. If you go, oh, have you increased your calorie intake recently? Like, shut up. Just tell me I've put on a few pounds and I'll sort it out.
Yeah. I don't really eat that much, man. I only had like 2 dozens of Krispy Kremes yesterday, but that's about it. Like, I think my diet is pretty lean.
No, the funny one is when they go, I don't eat anything, and you go, oh, tell me what you eat, and they literally just describe a bowl of cereal, and then maybe a celery stick, and then bed. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, that's all I eat, I swear. And then you see them, you catch them what they eat for lunch, and you're like, you always have a 12-piece McNugget bucket to yourself, and they're like, it's only one day off, and you go, you're doing this every day, aren't you? And they're like, no.
And the other best one is when people say that they eat healthy, and actually, like, I don't know, you go to a restaurant with them, or like a buffet or whatever, or you go to their house, and they have healthy food, but they put a fucking pile of it, and it's like, how is that helpful?
It's whole grain pasta, so I had the whole packet. It's organic cheese, so it's cottage cheese, so I had all of it. It's like, but moderation as well.
Yeah, absolutely true. But like, I don't want this whole podcast to be about weight. But
that is funny though. You got shamed into weight loss.
But I feel like that is slowly starting to change. Like, I don't condone any
If
bullying.
that happened today, that would be borderline abuse. The mum would probably get you caught for bullying. Or,
True.
Yeah,
But
you can't say that's not today.
But you need that. You need that hardship. You need the sense of competition, or the sense of...
Yeah. Men need that. I mean, I'm sure some women do as well, but the only people I've spoken to who go, yeah, that's a great thing, is men. Most friends of mine who are women, who would normally just say, why is competition necessary? You know, it doesn't matter who's better, does it? And it's like, it does. It does matter.
It does, absolutely. In the real world, it of course does.
Yeah.
So, like, again, why do you think kids nowadays are being brought up soft as compared to us? Like, I never really, like, I wasn't... I think it was normal, like my upbringing and everything. Like, there was nothing special about it, but it was definitely, you know, if I didn't get, I don't know, the good grade at school, or I didn't do something correctly, or I didn't, I don't know, get first place in whatever competition, you definitely felt it. It was like, yeah, okay, you just have to try harder next time. Whereas nowadays, it's like, oh well, Jimmy won, it's okay, you're still a winner because you took part. Like, that is such fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and they say it raises well-rounded people, but I just see that as you're raising someone who's not...
You're raising someone who's then incapable of living an adult life, because you feel you are being essentially brought up to expect everything to be handed to you on a platter just because you're part of something.
There was this great Black Mirror episode, and going back to your point of why do you think that's happening, I think it's largely driven by safety concerns. So, like, people are wanting to keep their children safe, and they think the way to keep them safe is to stop them from doing anything competitive. So, like, don't go outside and run about, play football, because, you know, there's all murderers and, you know, perverts out there. Stay inside where it's safe on your iPad.
Really?
Yeah, I think, they say, people used to have their kids used to be allowed to, like, run around, play late in the evenings or stuff. Like, kids don't really go to the park anymore. They'll just sit on their iPads at home. But that didn't come from the parents saying we want our kids to be lazy. It came from parents going, oh, well, there's too many dangers out there for them. Yeah. Let's just keep them inside. It is safer inside, but also then they're not learning about how to have their wits about them, and they're not learning about, maybe they're not making those mistakes, like falling, all mistakes or any hiccups or fuck ups that aren't fatal or detrimental. They only make a person stronger. Yeah. In terms of experiences, like how many mistakes are so valuable in learning, and I think that's the thing. Like you were saying about drive and participation in competition. Like, the only reason why I want to be the best is because I've been in so many competitions when I haven't been the best. Yeah. And sometimes maybe I'm the worst, and I'm going, oh, fuck, I don't want to experience that again. Yeah. I'm going to make sure I'm the best. Whereas if I'm always just given a participation trophy or something, then it's like, well, I guess I don't need to be better.
Yeah, that's so true. Do you think your upbringing made you harder?
Yes,
or tougher, sort of mentally, because that's what it all boils down to. Like,
yeah, I think and I really appreciate it. My upbringing, I think, was great, but I think I do appreciate it was very different from other people's. Yeah. So,
in what way?
It was like,
in what way?
Well, so like little things, like no pocket money, for example, for a start.
You had to pickpocket people.
No, actually, I was taught, I was sort of raised to be like, you don't need pocket money. What do you want to buy pocket money for? And as a kid, you're like, sweets. They're like, you don't want to eat sweets. They're bad for you. And I was like, okay, maybe some trainers. We'll buy you some trainers when your current ones are worn out. And they'll be like, Nike ones? No, you don't need Nike trainers. They're not important. And then I'd see the kid from around the block who lived in like a council house, but he had like the best fucking trainers about, and he was the cool kid. And I was looking down at my like pairs of like Lidl or George Asda trainers, And I was like, oh, I wish I had Nikes.
Yeah.
But now I've sort of come to the point where I'm like, yeah, cool. It's nice to have that, but it's not important. Like, it's better to have your own place, or it's better to have something. What really matters.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm not wearing a 80 quid Gucci shirt. I'm wearing like a £4 M&S t-shirt. Because I was raised with those values of spend money on things that are important. Second difference in my upbringing from a lot of my friends. My parents are very conservative in terms of, smacking was fine. Smacking only if you were bad. Only if you were bad, or if you were good. If you were too good, you needed a smack because what were you up to?
And when we say smacking, to all the sort of younger people out there listening, although I don't know if you should be listening
that's
to
when you're
this.
disciplined for being naughty. If you're like...
no one's talking about actually smacking on the face. Like, if anything, it was just a little smack on the ass.
Mainly on the ass, yeah. In fact, there was a policy where it had to be on the ass or lower, or something, legs, and everything else was fair game. Nothing around the head, nothing that could be visible to teachers. No, just anything that was just, if you swore, if I called my dad a bastard or something, he'd give me a smack, which is fair enough, to be fair. I don't understand the kids today, like especially like British, like English kids, like proper English, like Tracy and Stace, and you see them like, "Fuck you, man, you stupid cunt," and just like, wow. And Mum's like, "Oh, he's having one of those bad days." I'm like, that is, is that just a bad day? And he goes, "Oh, you should have seen. Like today's been quite good, And it's like you see the difference in different parents, like. If I did that when I was a kid, like I would get a smack on the head. Not even ass, man. I would get a smack on the head. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember, I used to work in a school. Right? I used to work in a school as a SEN sort of teacher, assistant teacher, and there was such a difference between just the born and bred English kids and kids with any sort of different ethnicities. Yeah. Like there was this kid, Matthew, a black kid, and he was so respectful to his mum and to the teachers. Don't get me wrong, he was still cheeky, but like he would never call the teacher a fucking whore, which is what some of the white kids did. And it was ridiculous. And I was like, wow, where are they getting these words from? Because I was in the playground, none of the kids in the playground were saying it. They're just getting it from their parents, and they're used to calling adults the most insane things. Whereas a lot of other kids, like myself included, knew if you even swore anything like that in front of your parents, let alone at them, you'd know the reason why. No naughty step. We're talking fucking hit. I think fucking hit straight to the eye. I said, man, I didn't realise that wooden spoons were used for cooking till I hit 7. I was like, oh shit! I was just like, we did like a bit of like a cooking class. I was like, why have we got like fucking smacking utensils? And they're like, oh, it's for cooking. I was like, oh. What
back in the 90s? What were the most common weapons used against kids? It was slipper for sure.
Yeah, slipper. Love a good slipper.
Yeah, and it was always thrown with like extra force and you like
projectile.
Yeah, man.
And a lot of people say the best smacking tool is the one that you have on you. A lot like cameras, and you're mainly wearing slippers around the house. Like maybe sometimes the wooden spoon's in the kitchen or it's in the dishwasher. A slipper is always on your foot. So if your kid's being naughty and they're not responding to you saying no, just reach down. The slipper's always there. And what you really want to get is one with a hard sole, just enough to give them a nice bit of sting. Just a nice bit of sting, just to let them know who's boss.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I was saying once, I think I might have told you this before. I remember once it was coming up to my mum's birthday, and I decided, because my mum my mum would always like try it with the slipper throwing, but I didn't mind it if my mum did it because she had terrible aim. So every time I would be there, it would be like going crazy, just like completely missing me. And like sometimes I'd be staring like point blank, and she'd be like, "You bastard!" And then she'd throw it, and then it would just completely miss me. And then I realised she'd get really upset if she knew that she missed me. And I'd be like, "You missed me." She'd get the other one or something else. what I learned to do was, even when it completely missed me, just pretend that it maybe like grazed me or something. And I was like, and then she was like, yeah, think about that. And I was like, yeah, and actually I was fine. But
So
I was just pretending.
You had a life lesson as well as a PE lesson, or PT, sorry, lesson.
I remember once I got my mum, I think it was for either my birthday or for Christmas. This is when I first had I first, not pocket money, but I was able to earn some money. I think my dad cleaned his cab or something.
Yeah.
And I remember I bought my mum some new slippers.
Yeah.
And, unbeknownst to her, she thought it was a lovely gift. She was like, oh, yeah, it's great. These are lovely. Thank you very much. But she didn't realise I'd sneakily bought her the world's softest slippers that were the least aerodynamic. If you want to throw them, that they weren't going anywhere.
Like a paper plane, yeah.
Yeah, it was like those big sort of puffy slippers with a really soft sole. And she didn't realise that this was done deliberately until I think it was like 4 months later, where I did something that required me having a slipper thrown at my direction. She went to pick it down. And as soon as she picked it up and it sort of flopped, she knew that what I'd done. And she started swearing at me. And I was like,
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Again, funny. I wouldn't get. I love that. I wouldn't trade that for anything
I know
else.
that, like, I don't know, like maybe someone listening to it, sort of nowadays that's younger, like, would be thinking like, this is just borderline fucking abuse, and you shouldn't do that. How is that allowed? But now, sort of talking about it, like the way you talk about it, it's all stories, and we laugh at it and everything. And obviously, it didn't cause you any harm. If anything, it made you, tougher a little bit, for lack of a better phrase.
And I think, I mean, don't get me wrong. So I wouldn't, if, when I have kids, or if I have kids in the future, I probably wouldn't do that to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Only because, obviously, I think times have changed a little bit. I do feel a little bit honoured that I was like sort of on the cusp of it just being acceptable.
I think we're the last generation, right? For that.
Yeah, kind of. And
this is not to condone any smacking or hitting children or anything.
No, of course not. And don't let me go. There's also, I'm sure there's some fucking monsters out there who do actually beat their kids. I was never beaten. I never got anything horrible. Like, it was never actually abused. It was more just like a light slap in the arse or something. Yeah. Just enough to be like, oi, don't do that again. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that to my own kids in the future, not because, partly because the times have changed, but also because I can't be bothered to get up and do that. Like, I want to be able to do it from my smartphone.
Like in the future, it's you can just do like cyber war, man. Just fucking take the iPad and that's it.
Mate, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna be
change the password.
I'm gonna be doing all of that. As soon as they disobey, I'll be saying, look, if you do that again, your latest save of Fortnite is going to disappear. Like, what? No! And then they're going to go in there, and all their costumes are going to be gone. And they'll be like, "What happened?" And be like, "Well, you know what? You didn't do your homework, and you were calling me names. And who's it's the Fortnite fairy? He's taking all your shit." That to me is more creative and more.
Absolutely.
I think I got that from The Simpsons. I think it was like Marge Simpson had a book to modern parenting, and she was like, Homer stops strangling Bart for a second, and Marge instead goes, "I'm going to discipline him in a different way," and she deletes his save. He goes, "Mom, how do you know about that? You're not supposed to know about that kind of stuff about deleting save games." She goes, "I've been reading up on how to discipline kids in the 21st century." And that's so funny.
There you go. Yeah, you just gotta adjust to the times, and that's it.
Yeah.
But do you think? Go on. Go on.
I think, like you said, limiting iPad time will be a big one.
Absolutely. Do you think, sort of, as we go on, kids will only sort of get softer and softer upbringing? I mean, we both. Neither of us are parents. We know people that are parents, but we just. This is strictly from just sort of observational point of view, like. I do think that it is going towards that way, and I don't think that's good because, like we said before, like we discussed, it just makes you are brought up not being ready for what real life actually is, because in real life there are no fucking rules, and it's a fair game to everyone, and you just got to find your own way.
Yeah, I do think that. I also think there's exceptions to the rule with everything. So. an exception to the rule with the way we were brought up, maybe even if it was just slightly smacking a kid on the bum because they were naughty, there are probably some kids who that really affected negatively, and maybe they came up worse.
Yeah.
In the same way that if you would have raised somebody who's soft and always gave them a participation trophy, maybe they'd come out still competitive. Maybe it's naturally inherent, but I do think what you're saying of it has however you decide to raise your kids or whatever, it needs to have some resemblance to the real world. Like telling your children no sometimes is good, and telling them, you know what, I said you needed to do this within this time frame. You didn't do it, therefore you miss out. Because that isn't everything, and it might not even just be before you even get to the real world. If you're just at university or handing in a essay deadline, if you miss the deadline, you're done. Unless you've got some sort of medical prescription. But it's good to sort of. They have to experience some sort of loss, some sort of hardship, even if it's on a minor scale, just so they build up those sort of antibodies.
Hardship and antibodies, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, for the lack of a better term, they're sort of keyed up for when something does happen.
Yeah,
it's a bit like if somebody's never exposed to any sort of illnesses or any colds, the first flu they get will probably kill them because they haven't built up an immune system. The same thing goes for any sort of hardship. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with Rona going around right now.
Absolutely. And that comes with, they're saying it affects people mostly who are unfit.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse to see than seeing an adult person who is just incapable of doing any simple sort of adult task. Like I hate seeing that, because I'm just thinking to myself, Huh?
There's plenty of them.
That's just useless, man. That, like, as hard as it sounds, that's a useless person.
The funniest thing that I found out that is they don't even know that they're useless.
Yeah,
that's even worse. Being like, I can't trust you to go to the shops and buy eggs because I know you'll just fuck it up and buy fucking rice or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you need discipline, you need hardship, like all of that is needed. And sometimes, as bad as it may be in 2020, you need some stranger or someone that you don't know to like tell you, like, get your shit together, because there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And also, normally as well, like the stranger, he has nothing to gain, or they have nothing to gain from telling you something negative. They're not like, whereas you might go, oh, someone in the office might not like you, therefore they're saying this. If a complete stranger that you bumped into the street never says up to you, feels like they need to say, God, you're fat. Like, whether they're intentional or not, they don't have anything to gain or not gain from that.
Yeah.
And it's just take it as an objective look.
Like what you said, it's all about intent. Obviously, if someone fucking says it with a malicious intent, or like, that's wrong. But if someone says it because they just see, if you're like 150 pounds, 150 kilos or 250 pounds, you are fat. You are fat. Lose weight.
Well, I think it's just whatever. Like I always feel guilty whenever I see someone who's very different just in public. Like there'll be somebody who's like got either like a pink mohawk, like I'm talking like the best mohawk you've ever seen, spikes, dyed pink, fluorescent pink, and they're on the tube, and I just can't stop staring at them because I'm like, wow, that is a sick haircut. That is sick. And then they look at you as if like, why are you staring at me? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I know that's rude. Sorry, I shouldn't stare. But then I'm like, no, you don't want to blend in that much, because if you did, you wouldn't be having that fucking stupid haircut. And let me look, because there's not many mohawks. I haven't seen a mohawk this year.
Yeah, man. So, just say to that person, cool fucking mohawk.
No, normally because they're normally quite smelly, and they've got like a grundy chain, and they've got a nose ring. I don't want to catch anything. You know?
I love how you say something nice and then follow it up with like shitting on whatever the person is. Situation.
Hair, I like the rest. The lifestyle, being dirty for the sake of it, not a big fan. Like you don't need a nose piercing, let alone 6. So just you know.
Well, you need discipline, you need hardship in your life, and you need to be able to sort yourself out in every situation. Absolutely. And this podcast isn't about condoning any sort of physical abuse or mental abuse or anything like that.
Takeaway points are smack children, whether they're yours or not.
But it is about being ready for life, essentially.
I think, it's very hard, even though we're both in our 20s, it's very hard not to sound like, back in my day.
It is a little bit of that. I was definitely thinking that. Like, it is a little bit of that.
Like, I still cringe when, you happen to click on a YouTube video and it's just like, then there's a kid, like an actual kid, like going, remember to like and subscribe. And you're like, you can't be older than 6. Or sometimes, they're just doing a tutorial for something, an unboxing, and then you realize it's a child doing the unboxing and they're already there going, and then there's puppets parenting and stuff. So I don't know. And
then you scroll down and they have 10 million subscribers and you're like, shit.
Yeah, they know what to do. Their parents know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks for coming on the show. Check out Adam's YouTube channel. I'll link it down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Adam. Take care.
Cheers, mate. See you.
Bye.